Hello, and welcome to the Creative Career Change podcast with me, Hannah Ash. I make my living working simultaneously as a music teacher, an interior designer, a writer, a podcaster, and more. You can read more about me and my work on Substack. Visit shayhanny.substack.com. That's Shayhanny spelled Chezhanny. The focus of this series is on female multi-hyphenates. I've been interested in this concept ever since I read Emma Gannon's book, The Multi-Hyphen Method, several years ago, and these days I consider myself to be a multi-hyphenate. I'm keen to explore, through talking to other women, what real-life multi-hyphenate life looks like across the world, the joys, the challenges, and everything in between. In today's episode, I'm joined by California-based content and copywriter Brina Patel. Brina, welcome to the Shayhanny podcast, and thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your experiences as a multi-hyphenate. Please, could you start by introducing yourself and giving us a potted career history?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Hannah, for having me here. I'm really excited to chat about creativity and my journey. It's something I love talking about. So my journey definitely, I think, like a lot of creatives, has not been a linear one by any means, but it's now that I'm where I'm at, it is very clear to me that I kind of had to go through a lot of these different things to be where I am today. So, yeah, my name is Brina Patel. I am an Indian American woman. My mother is actually born in the UK to an Indian family, and then my dad is from India. So I definitely have the sort of dual identity that I always like to say. So I was born and raised here in Northern California. And growing up, I always was kind of led to believe there were like very few career paths you could have, especially coming from a South Asian family. It was like medicine or business or, something very established and stable. Um, so I knew I wanted to work with kids. Just in college, I spent a lot of time volunteering, doing different programs with primary school children. And so after graduating from university, I worked with kids on the autism spectrum as a behavior therapist. So working with them, helping them to just develop more social skills and even verbal, like learning to speak or speak more clearly for some of them. Um, and then in 2019, I started dealing with some health issues. So this time I had to really take a pause, and it was obviously very unexpected. And I was thinking of going into becoming a teacher. And so, given the health stuff, I had to really stop and reconsider what would kind of align with my life and sort of the new reality that I was in. And so I ended up going back to graduate school for marriage and family therapy. And while I was very passionate about I still am very passionate about the mental health space, I just realized it wasn't for me. So during the pandemic, I started writing again. It was just a really cathartic creative outlet. I had grown up writing, and I think a lot of writers I've talked to have told me the same thing, where they would write a lot as kids and, have very imaginative stories, but then sort of somewhere along the way, that passion is stifled, maybe just extinguished a bit. And so I reconnected with that side of myself, and I just found so much clarity, and it was just something that I needed and I really missed. And so I'd heard of a lot of people working as freelancers, but I never knew exactly what that meant. I knew that they weren't working traditional 9 to 5 jobs. They were kind of doing their own employment. So I was intrigued, and the flexibility of it really appealed to me, especially given that I was still going through like the beginning stages of the health stuff, and I really wanted to have that scheduling, being able to do my own things on my own time. And so I started looking into the world of freelance writing, and I just read a lot of blogs, watched a lot of YouTube videos. Elna Kane was actually one of the people I remember who was just very helpful. She's really big in the content writing and copywriting world. So that was really helpful. There were definitely a lot of setbacks and learning curves the first year, just doing a lot of projects for not a lot of money and just learning all about, how to price things, how to work with editors, and also just kind of finding my own voice and passions as a writer, like where I wanted to hone my skill set. So I started to find my footing in early 2022, and I started to freelance for some bigger publications like Business Insider, Very Well Mind, Well and Good, and I did some contract work for Homes.com. So I think this is when I started to see like, okay, this can lead somewhere. I can take this from being something that might turn into a career into like, okay, this can turn into a career. Like it just was a sort of the turning point for me. And so later that year, I ended up taking some copywriting courses through Alex Catoni, who is another big figure in the copywriting space, and just learn more about email marketing and doing web copy. And just it opened up this whole new side of the writing journey for me. And so I actually wanted some more just kind of experience and to sort of have that full-time experience and sort of build my skill set with a company. So I ended up finding a full-time position with a health and wellness startup the end of 2022. And I wrote a mix of blogs, articles, social media posts, emails, and web and mobile copy. So this is, I think, when those seeds of the multi-hyphenate started to get planted. And yeah, it was just a really enriching experience in terms of building those skills and learning about all these different avenues I could take. So this past December, after a little over a year, I did leave the startup, and I've since been transitioning back into some freelance work. And I have my eyes set on working hopefully with more health and wellness companies. That's just where I find that my passions really lie, and I really enjoy just spreading more knowledge to the public about different wellness related topics. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And it's really it strikes me that by going down this path of trying out lots of different things over the past few years, it feels like you've been able to hone in on the things that really speak to you or that really mean something to you. As you say, the health and wellness. I guess if you hadn't tried out all those different approaches or worked in those different environments, you may not have discovered that. So this is something that seems quite common with lots of people that I speak to, that it's so important, isn't it, to kind of put yourself out there and try things, because some of those things will work and appeal and some of them won't, but it's all part of that journey, and it's lovely to hear that. You've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but when did you first start to become fully aware of this idea that a multi-hyphenate or a portfolio career could be something, or was out there and was available to you to try?
Yeah, I really like this question because it kind of got me thinking too. So the first instance I can remember, so after graduating from university back in 2016, I took a gap year and I traveled through India, Nepal, Thailand, and a couple of other countries. And during this time, I met so many people who just deviated from traditional career paths, both locals and fellow travelers. And it just really like opened my eyes because I think coming from the US especially, where, it's like that corporate ladder kind of mindset, and you have this one career you choose and you're in it for life. It just was like, whoa, like people are doing all sorts of things. Like there was a man that I met who he ran a school. He also had a mobile repair business, and then he had a real estate gig on the side. So he was doing just like three vastly different things, but he was really loving it. And I could really see like the passion he had for all three of the things. And he seemed to be really good at it too. So I was just like, wow. And even other travelers who I was meeting who were like earning money through just doing gig work as well, like whether it was like teaching yoga and then maybe teaching English on the side, stuff like that, where it was just very like different pieces kind of coming together to create their income source, but I was just very amazed that people could do this and like support themselves too. Like it just was like, wow, like everything I've kind of learned back, growing up, that conditioning was like, okay, maybe that's not how things really have to be. Like we can have different things we do and make careers out of them and have like thriving careers at that as well. So yeah, I didn't know that it was multi-hyphenate was the term for it back then, but now it's like that was definitely my first exposure to seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I loved your answer to that. I think that is so brilliant to kind of hear about how an experience of traveling can lead to so much more than what I mean. I don't know what we might expect traveling to bring. It's obviously so the world is so rich out there with things, but that's just such an interesting, tangible thing that you were able to take from that experience of traveling. And I think I have to mention as well that I've read some of your, there was one of your Substack posts a few months back in particular that you'd written about some of your experiences of traveling. Um,
Mhm.
there was just so much about what you'd written that really resonated with me, and I enjoyed that very much. So I'll probably link to that post actually when I write up the show notes of this podcast, because I'd like to highlight that because I think it really was a very enjoyable read, and you talked a lot more about some of the people that you met on your travels, which yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you. I'm glad it resonated.
so with the kind of I mean, I use this term multi-hyphenate, I suppose, quite loosely because it feels like something that has been recently or more recently used as a title. But as you say, people all over the world have been doing this for a very, very long time. And we can call it all sorts of different things. But did you get to a point where you suddenly realized, oh, I'm doing it? Or did you set out to be a multi-hyphenate and have all these different strands? Which way did it evolve?
I found myself in it, um, and specifically with that startup job that I was in for all of last year was like the idea of being a multi-hyphenate. Like I was like, wow, like, I have been living as a multi-hyphenate in this role, even though I have like one title, I'm doing like so many things because right in the startup world, it's like a lot of the time you're wearing so many different hats. Like you might have the title of, for example, my title was content writer, but I was doing a lot of like marketing related things, some PR, working with like the user experience testing. So it's like all these other things under this umbrella. So I definitely feel like I ended up in it. And once I was in that space, I was like, okay, like I can be a multi-hyphenate because I think I've always known like instinctively that I'm someone who just loves to like mix things up, do a lot of different things. Like I have a lot of interests, and I think just maybe part of me was like still holding on to that restrictiveness of like, okay, I have to follow that one path. Like that's the stable way to go. And but I think once I reflected at the end of last year, I was like, okay, like I can be a multi-hyphenate and this is something that's possible. So
Yeah. Something that strikes me in what you're saying, and I wonder if this is the case for you, but for me, when I was at school, I genuinely enjoyed pretty much all the subjects that I had to study, enjoyed studying. And then in the UK, when you get to the age of 16, and you've completed your GCSEs, which are in pretty much all the subjects, you suddenly have to narrow everything down to choosing either 3 or 4 subjects that you then study. And when I look back on that now, I think actually that was the point where I had to kind of say goodbye to or give up some of the things, some of the strands that I really
Mm.
enjoyed. And I've talked to other people who kind of have had similar experiences, but I wonder if for you, did you enjoy lots of different things at school, and did you ever have a point where choosing between different things was a challenge?
Yeah, definitely. Like I would say it was a major challenge because similarly here too, it's like when you're going into university, you choose your major. And for most people, that's when you're 18 and it's like kind of committing to this. Of course, you can change it, but just, being in this kind of spotlight where like it's like, okay, pick one thing. So, yeah, I mean, I was always really interested in like the more like literature. Like I loved reading, writing, like the arts, and then psychology, which is what I ended up majoring in. And then like history and social studies too, like kind of more of the humanities
Yeah.
topics. I was never much of a like math person, but I did like certain sciences too. So yeah, it's like you said, it really you have to say goodbye without realizing because it's kind of like, okay, well, this is the path you're on now, like just kind of tunnel vision, charge ahead. So it kind of does really limit a lot of us, I think. And
Think it does, and I think it's psychologically, it maybe just does something to us where we're almost, even though we've just chosen, because we had to make that choice not to do something, it's almost like saying, oh, I'm not quite as good at that thing as I am at these other things, so I'll stick with those. For me, that was English and writing in a way, because I was enjoyed it, and I was fine. I did pretty well, did okay in it at school, but at the age of 16, I kind of made that choice to focus on other subjects. And then for the rest of my life, up until probably the last year, I kind of never considered writing to be something that interested me or that I could be good at. And of course, the world is just not that closed off. I'm interested in this, whether those of us that now are considering ourselves to be multi-hyphenates have this kind of, or have ever felt that we've had to kind of make those choices along the way. And I'm sure that might be a common thread.
I think so, yeah.
I think this is a new question that I'm going to add in. Sorry, I've thrown that one at you just now, but it
It's
just
a
kind
good one. Yeah, a lot of like good reflection.
yeah. So can you talk us through at the moment the strands that currently make up you as a multi-hyphenate?
Yeah, of course. So there is the content writer side of my career, and that's sort of where I got started. So that entails more of the long form writing, so blogs, articles, and then occasionally I'll do like an essay for like freelance. I did one recently for Pop Sugar, so just whenever those come up. And then there's the copywriting side. So that is more of the like marketing umbrella of things. So the emails, copy for web pages and social media. And then there's projects that I do for like my own, I guess just my own passions. So I've been writing on Medium, earning a little bit of money, and then also Substack, not earning on there just yet, but I'm open to it in the future. And then there's some speaking that I've done as well. I really enjoy sharing kind of my own, like we're doing now, like sharing my own journey and also sharing my own experiences with different aspects of my career with other people. So I've gotten to do some mostly locally, with organizations, just sharing on different topics. And then I'm exploring other creative interests as well. Like I know you were saying in the last year, you've been kind of leaning into writing and other endeavors more, and that's been really like similar experience for me in the last 6 months where I'm going back to these passions that I was once really into. So for me, it's dance and poetry. I grew up as a dancer. I was dancing for about 14 years. And then once I entered university, it was sort of one of those things where it's like, oh, I got to focus on studying. There's no time for this frivolous
Yeah.
pursuit. So I'm not earning any money through these endeavors right now, but I would love to maybe explore like teaching dance or just doing something where I can share that love of dance with people in the future.
I think it's interesting as well what you say about the distinction of earning money from something and not earning money from something, because I think, like you, I'm starting to kind of see those lines being much more blurred than I perhaps once felt. It used to be, this is my job, these are my hobbies. And now there's this sort of realization that these things can merge more fluidly together, I guess. And I think because even if you're not earning money from something, it's undoubtedly going to influence just the way you think. So I guess for you, by returning back to dancing, that will have some creative effect on your writing, or I don't know. I don't know how that essentially works, but
Yeah.
it strikes me as well that you are really open to possibilities. The way you kind of talk through all those different strands there, I can almost see the thread of how one thing has perhaps led into another. And in
Mhm.
terms of the speaking, how did you how did you start to get those opportunities? Where did they arise from?
Yeah, so I never expected to do any speaking. I've always considered myself a very like shy, introverted, like socially anxious person. And so that has really been something that has been sort of a surprise to me. And I actually really enjoy it because it has helped me overcome that public speaking fear. And the way I've gotten into it is just by local networking. So I am a part of a writing group and a like creative professionals organization. And through both of those communities, I've landed speaking gigs just through meeting and networking with people and sort of sharing what I do and then finding gaps and maybe where they want to share knowledge with the larger in the larger membership. So it's been really nice just how kind of those opportunities come up a bit unexpectedly, but it's been fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Because I mean, in my previous world of work, I used to think of this idea of networking as just being this kind of like a bit like you. I consider myself to not be very, um, I don't know, keen to put myself like in front of people and speak and things like that. And so often any networking opportunity, I just would kind of shy away from. But I can really resonate with what you're saying, because I felt the same, that in getting involved in something that means something to me, the idea of then talking to other people about it is feels very natural, and it flows in a way
Yeah,
that never quite did before. Do you have a favorite aspect to your work at the moment?
definitely. So it really comes down to me, I think, for advocacy and that kind of like I've always considered myself like I've done so many personality tests and I always end up finding myself in like the area of like the helper, the person who wants to like give back. Um, so I really like using creativity to give back in my own way. So for example, I enjoy talking about stigmatized topics, even though it's difficult. Just coming from my own Indian cultural background, and as I've grown up, just seeing a lot of the stigmas there are, especially around mental health and how detrimental it has been to, just family members and other people in our community. And so I've been on this big journey of understanding my South Asian heritage and undoing a lot of those cultural expectations, and writing has just been instrumental in helping me get there because, when you write, you can process so many things. And with hindsight, it's like you can sort of take ownership of your narrative as well. So in addition to discussing my mental health on Substack, I've also done mental health focus like freelance work. So like I said, the Pop Sugar piece recently where I talked about my experiences in therapy. Um, and even like with speaking, I would love to do more speaking on mental health someday. That's something that's like in my mind. But yeah, it's intimidating to be vulnerable about these topics and to like really share such a deep side of yourself with people. But I always love that idea of how like writing can bring us together because it just breaks down a lot of these external presentations that we tend to put on. And it's just like, here, this is who I am. These are my like flaws and failures, and this is what I struggle with. And we all like kind of remind ourselves that we're all just kind of struggling alongside each other.
Absolutely. I read your Pop Sugar article earlier, and I'd love to link to it in the show notes if you're happy for me to do so. But I wondered whether you had any people contact you after writing that, or whether that kind of brought any other conversations up, because it struck me that there would be lots of people out there that would read your piece and it would speak to them, and they would feel less alone in the world, or there'd be something about it that resonated with them. So I wondered whether that happened afterwards, whether you talk to people about it.
Yeah, so I did share it on my social channels, and I did receive a lot of messages from people saying like, this was so relatable, and like, thank you for sharing this. Like, that's something that I get a lot of. It's just like, thank you for talking about this. And it kind of like, I feel very like overwhelmed with gratitude because it's like, wow, okay, like people do need
Yeah.
these like this work, like they feel seen through it. And I think like just hearing that from them and like knowing that it's resonated and it's, hit a certain point in them too, where it's like, okay, like this is what I needed. So yeah, it's been very rewarding to hear from them. I think that's one part of writing that I love too, is just hearing from people who have read it and hearing what parts they might have resonated with or what parts like kind of made them think about something deeper. Because I think when you write, sometimes too, it feels like you're just sending stuff out into a void. So when you hear back from people and it's like, okay, people are reading and people are relating to this. So it just affirms that like, okay, I'm doing the right thing, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I can 100% understand that feeling, because you talk in that article about particularly mental health and the culture that you and your family come from. Has that changed any relationships with people in your family? You being quite open about a lot of this stuff, has that changed the way that people talk?
I think it has. Like, I've definitely picked up very subtly on some changes. I think on the one hand, there are certain family members who might not be as accepting of me being this vocal. Um, and so that has been something where I've like had to really undo. I think I've always been a big people pleaser too. And so knowing that I can't please everyone, and if there are family members who don't like me being open about these things, like that's not about me, it's about just them not being secure in their own way. I would say like relatives or family members who are closer in age to me or going through something of their own, whether it's like their sexual identity or they've had mental health issues. I feel like it's connected us more deeply because I think they might not always feel like they can speak about these things. And so reading from what I've, produced, they feel a little bit, at least I hope they feel more comfortable sharing and leaning into those parts of themselves. So it's been definitely like two sides of it, but I know that it's all part of the process and like kind of it's gonna there not everyone will accept this, and that is expected.
We relate to people who perhaps are a similar age to us, in have the similar where there's similarities, that helps to kind of bond and bind people. If you feel like you've made some inroads there, then that has to be a positive. And challenging things is always going to be difficult, isn't it? It's never gonna it's never gonna
Right.
go forward. But I really enjoyed reading your piece, so I'll certainly
Thank you.
share that as well. Would you like to change the balance at all with your your work. So you've mentioned what your favorite aspect is, but would you like to see more of that coming in, or are you happy with the way things are balanced at the moment?
Yeah, I would say that I want to do a lot more collaboration. That's something I've always enjoyed is collaborating with other people, especially through interviewing. So when I was, doing a lot of this freelancing for like Well and Good and Business Insider, I was doing a lot of interviews. So kind of like we're doing now, where I would talk to people about their journey or talk to them about a particular mental health issue. And I really enjoyed having these conversations, and it's something that I haven't done as much of. So I would love to get the chance to talk to more people, however like that might show up. Kind of use like do projects where I can have these conversations to continue tackling stigmas. So I had on my Substack, I was doing like an interview series. I've abandoned it just for time reasons, but I do want to maybe return to it. And it would be nice to do maybe a longer project, where I can, talk to people in the community and tackle a stigmatized topic and maybe just do some sort of collaborative thing. That's something in general I've been wanting to do more of, is just build community and build more connection. And so finding a way to bring that into my work is just sort of what I'm looking for right now.
And I wonder, based on everything we've kind of talked about so far, whether that may just appear at some point, and perhaps you'll find yourself in a scenario where that kind of collaborative opportunity appears or presents itself, because it seems that that often happens.
Yeah.
Once your mindset is in that kind of particular sphere, which I think yours clearly is, um, these things just have a habit of starting to appear. So I hope that that does happen for you. I wonder, have you found that the need to earn money has ever got in the way of exploring new ideas?
Yeah, I would say it has. Especially when I was last year at the startup, I would say I wasn't in a very exploratory headspace. I was definitely when I was in work mode, but I think outside of work, I wasn't really doing a lot of these hobbies and passions that I'm doing now. And I think, yeah, I think there's definitely this feeling that, I don't know, I guess maybe just this sometimes fear of exploring new things, even that when it's what we want. And there's this idea that I've kind of been coming back to this year too, where it's like what we resist the most is sometimes what we need the most. And I think I found myself resisting a lot of these fun things for a long time, but then now that I'm doing them, it's like what I've needed. And I think just being in the societies that we're in, where it's so like money driven, it's really hard to like listen to our own like gut feelings sometimes, because we're just so inundated with like messages about, the rising cost of this, and you got to save up for retirement. And I think just it's hard to really be like, hey, it's okay to have fun. It's okay to explore and experiment. Like, it's necessary for being able to do the more mundane or difficult like tasks that we have to do as adults in the world.
Yeah, I that so much of that speaks very much to me, because I agree that same for me. When I had a full-time salary job, it just seemed to take everything from me. So then when I get home, I didn't have any energy. I didn't feel like I had any energy to kind of explore hobbies in the same way. And now I've kind of gone to the other extreme, where I almost need to kind of rein in the the hobbies and the
I
extra.
get that.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't. This is one of the things that I've been kind of exploring a lot, but it's trying to find that balance, which I guess is what we're
Yes.
all trying to seek.
Yeah, the elusive balance.
Final question. Do you have any advice for anybody who's listening to this and either thinking of adding some more hyphens to their work, or even just kind of shifting from a full-time salaried job to doing a range of different things?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first of all, go for it. I think there's so much more to gain from doing it and at least trying it than to not try it and wonder, what if. And I've actually just gone through The Artist's Way, the creative recovery book by Julia Cameron, and it's just been very eye-opening and really solidified to me the importance of honoring all sides of ourselves, whether that's creatively or just anything we want to express, just really allowing ourselves to do so. I think we really serve others when we, lean into those passions. And I think that we're kind of operating from a more, I guess, just aligned and like authentic place when we give our talents to the world in this way. Um, and I think as well, there's like a newfound sense of resilience and confidence that comes from, being a multi-hyphenate because you are doing a lot of different things and some of them might be just so different from each other. So being able to say that you have these different skills and these different sides of your career or, your identity, it creates a lot more room for opportunities as well, like monetarily, but even just in terms of who you can connect with and what other experiences might come up. And it's on a personal level, I found that it's really helped me just meet and learn from many fascinating people and just like open up to life and feel more confident. Like I would say that's a big part is it's really helped me become more confident, which has been a huge struggle, like just with, shyness, low self-esteem for most of my life. And like now feeling like, hey, I have all these skills and I know that I can do all these things and I know I'm capable and I know that I can continue to like challenge myself and push myself in these whatever ways.
It sounds to me like you are really starting to kind of thrive in the and find the direction that makes you happy and or at least makes you feel fulfilled in what you're doing. And so many people I've spoken to over the past few months, they say the same thing, that if you don't try these things then you'll never know. And who wants to live their life and get to old age hopefully and look back and think, oh, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that, and I try and remember that a lot myself. But
Yeah.
I love what you're doing and what you're saying, and I really look forward to following, continuing to follow your journey on Substack and other platforms and see where it all leads, because I can feel the excitement and the buzz, and that's always such a lovely thing to feel, that energy coming through. So thank you so much for chatting to me. It's been a real pleasure to hear your story, and I will also share links to your Substack and various articles and things that you've written. So thank you so much, Brina. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, likewise, Hannah. Thank you. This has been amazing, and I've just loved chatting through this journey with you and finding our commonalities as well.
That was Hannah Ash talking to Brina Patel on the Creative Career Change podcast. If you'd like to read Brina's work, you can find links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode and aren't already subscribed, visit shayhani.substack.com to sign up and receive new episodes direct to your inbox. I hope you'll join me again for the next episode of the Shay Honey podcast, featuring another inspiring woman living the multi-hyphenate life. Until then.